You remember it perfectly. The birthday party, the smell of the cake, the exact color of the balloons, your mother's laugh across the room. You would swear on anything that this memory is real, untouched, exactly as it happened. But here's the problem. That memory isn't a recording. It never was. There is no hidden camera in your skull that filmed the party and has been quietly holding the footage ever since. The moment you just replayed it, you changed it. Not a little, not by accident. Every single time you remember something, your brain doesn't press play. It opens the file, edits it, and saves over the original. And it does this every time, forever. This is called reconsolidation, and it might be the strangest thing your brain does to you without ever asking permission. For decades, scientists believed memory worked like a filing cabinet. You store an experience once, and it sits there, untouched, until you pull it back out. Then, in 2000, a neuroscientist named Kareem Nader ran an experiment that broke that idea completely. He trained rats to fear a sound by pairing it with a mild shock. Classic fear memory. Simple, stable, or so everyone assumed. But Nader did something nobody had tried. Right after the rats recalled the fear memory, he injected a drug into their brains that blocked protein synthesis. The process memories need to stay stored. If memory really worked like a filing cabinet, this should have done nothing. The memory was already saved. Instead, the fear vanished. The rats forgot to be afraid. The act of remembering had pulled the memory out of storage and left it unstable, sitting there unprotected until it was rewritten and filed away again. Interrupt that rewriting process, and the memory doesn't survive intact. It breaks. Nader had just proven that a memory is never simply retrieved. It is rebuilt, every single time, from whatever pieces happen to be lying around, and what happens in a rat's brain happens in yours. Around the same time, a psychologist named Elizabeth Loftus was proving something even stranger in human minds. She would sit people down and describe 4 childhood memories, 3 of them real, 1 of them invented entirely, a story about getting lost in a shopping mall that never happened. Within a few sessions, a quarter of her subjects weren't just accepting the fake memory, they were elaborating on it, adding details, the color of the stranger's jacket, the panic they felt, the relief when they were found. None of it happened. All of it felt real. Loftus called this the misinformation effect, and she didn't stop at shopping malls. In later studies, she convinced people they had once been hospitalized overnight, met Bugs Bunny at Disneyland, a meeting that could never have happened because Bugs Bunny isn't a Disney character. People remembered shaking his hand anyway. Loftus never had to plant a fully formed lie. Most of the time, all it took was a leading question, a suggestive photo, or someone else's confident retelling sitting next to the real memory in the same mental drawer. Given even a small gap to fill, the brain would fill it, smoothing the story into something that made sense, then storing that smoothed over version as if it had been there all along. So, a false memory doesn't feel different from a real one. There is no warning label, no asterisk. Your brain stores both with exactly the same confidence. But maybe you're thinking, fine, strangers can be tricked in a psychology lab. Surely the big memories, the ones that mattered, are protected. They are not. Psychologists call them flashbulb memories. The moments so intense you're certain you'll remember every detail forever. Where you were, what you were doing, the exact second you found out. Researchers studied people's memories of the Challenger space shuttle disaster the day after it happened, then asked the same people to recall it again 2.5 years later. The second accounts were wildly different from the first. People changed who told them the news. They changed where they were standing, and they were completely confident that the new, wrong version was the accurate one. The same pattern showed up after September 11th. Researchers surveyed thousands of people within days of the attacks, then came back a year later, then 3 years later. People swore they had watched the first plane hit the tower live on television that morning. It was impossible. Footage of the first impact wasn't broadcast until the next day. Nobody watched it live, and yet entire crowds of confident, ordinary people remembered doing exactly that. Vivid, emotional, certain, and measurably false. The confidence never dropped. Only the accuracy did. This is not a flaw in a few unlucky people. This is what remembering is. And it has cost people more than a birthday party detail. In the United States, eyewitness misidentification has played a role in the majority of wrongful convictions, later overturned by DNA evidence. Witnesses who looked a jury in the eye and described a face with total certainty, a face their own memory had quietly rebuilt somewhere between the crime and the courtroom. Some of those witnesses spent hours with police sketch artists, refining a face that felt more accurate with every correction. Each correction was really another rewrite, another version saved over the last one. By the time they stood in court, they weren't describing what they saw. They were describing the newest draft of a memory that had already been edited a dozen times. They weren't lying. Their memory had simply done what memory always does. But if reconsolidation can be used to quietly destroy the truth, scientists realized it could also be used on purpose, for good. If a memory becomes unstable every time it's recalled, then that brief window is also a chance to change it deliberately. Researchers began testing this on people with severe PTSD. They would have a patient recall a traumatic memory, just enough to destabilize it, then introduce a safe, calm environment or a mild beta blocker while the memory sat unprotected, waiting to be resaved. In several trials, patients reported the memory was still there afterward. They hadn't forgotten what happened, but the fear attached to it had faded, sometimes dramatically, as if the emotional charge had been rewritten out during the resave. The same mechanism that lets an innocent man's face turn into the wrong one in a witness's memory can also let a veteran finally sleep through the night. It is the same door, opening in both directions. Some researchers have pushed this further, pairing recall with sleep, with exposure therapy, with drugs that target the exact proteins Nader blocked in his rats 20 years earlier. The goal is never to erase the past. Nobody has figured out how to do that, and most don't think they should. The goal is narrower and stranger. Catch the memory in that brief, unstable window after it's been pulled out of storage, and let it go back in carrying a little less weight than it did before. So why would evolution build a system this unreliable? Because stability was never the point. A memory that never updated would be useless the moment your life changed around it. Reconsolidation lets old memories absorb new information, new context, new meaning, so the past can stay useful to the person you are now, not just the person you were when it happened. The cost of that flexibility is permanence. You cannot have both. Think about what that actually means. Every grudge you've held on to, every childhood story you tell at dinner, every memory you'd stake your life on, has passed through this same process dozens, maybe hundreds of times. Each pass a small negotiation between what actually happened and what you need it to mean now. Not deception, just biology, doing the only thing it knows how to do with something as unstable as the past. Every memory you carry has been opened and resaved more times than you could count. The version in your head right now is not the original file. It's a copy of a copy of a copy, each one slightly reshaped by the person doing the remembering. So go back to that birthday party, the cake, the balloons, your mother's laugh. You didn't just recall that memory while reading this. You rebuilt it, right now, in this exact moment, and quietly saved a new version over the old one. It will never again be exactly what it was before you thought of it just now. The past you're so sure of was never waiting for you, frozen and safe. It has been changing every time you've gone looking for it, and it just changed again.